Hello, how is everyone doing? I have a question for you. First of all, what do you know about the book of Ruth? The book of Ruth. The book of Ruth. When you hear the book of Ruth, what do you hear? A love story? Boaz, a good woman found a good man. A good man is going to... That's the mother-in-law. That's what you hear when you hear the book of Ruth. So when I got this assignment, when I decided to do this Bible study class about the book of Ruth, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy because it's a love story. You know, it's a story about a woman finding a good man. I could talk about that all day because I found a good man and he take care of me and he take care of all four of my sisters and he deal with all my problems. I can tell you about that all day long. But I was wrong. The book of Ruth is not just a love story about a woman finding a man. Who knew? So when I read it the first time and I was like, so then I read it again. So this time I read it with my mouth open, like, wait a minute. This isn't what they told me this book was about, you know? And then I read it again. Then I started looking at words. Wait a minute. I don't see love anywhere in here. I don't see one time where Boaz said he loved Ruth or Ruth said she loved Boaz. And I'm like, okay, now I'm confused. So the assignment that I thought was going to be the easiest assignment I ever had turned out to be the hardest assignment that I had. So after reading it the fourth time, I had asked myself, you know, because when you think of a Bible study, you think of one scripture, or in the traditional Bible study, there's one or two scriptures, and they take those scriptures and they run from them. Well, the book of Ruth, you really can't do that. Well, I really couldn't do it. I kept, and that was the puzzling part. I couldn't find 4 scriptures or 4 verses that I could take and just teach a whole lesson. So then it's like, Lord, what do you want me to learn? What do you want me to teach out of this book? You know, what is it? And look at Ruth's story. Look at what Ruth went through. Don't look at the words of, you know, where she went here, she went there, she did. Look at her whole story. What can you get out of Ruth? So then I looked at it. So we're going to break it up into 4 sessions. This session, we're going to look at the storm that Ruth was in. Because granted, Ruth was in a storm. Her husband died. She was living with her mother-in-law. That's a hurricane right there. She was living with her mother-in-law. She had no money, and she was nowhere near her family. She wasn't just in a storm. She was in a tornado. Everything was coming from every which way. So that I looked and I said, well, Ruth was going through a storm. She confessed to love. She confessed God in the first couple of verses. She confessed and she said that she told Naomi, your God will be my God. So she converted and she was a Christian and she believed she was following God's way. So then I was like, well, guess what? Christians have storms. Storms will come. Regardless, they may be big, they may be small, but storms will come. So the question, in the book of Ruth, they didn't focus on how big her storm was. They didn't focus on how long it lasted. They focused. It showed me how to deal while going through a storm. So that's what we're going to focus on. Because believe it or not, the thing isn't the size of the storm or what the storm is about. It's how you handle while you're going through the storm. Because people are looking at how you act while you're going through this storm. Now, that is one verse that did pop out. Because Boaz told Naomi. Naomi asked Boaz, what did I do for you to reward me in such a way, to have favor? And he said, people have told me what you did for your mother-in-law when you left your family, when her husband, people told him how she reacted when she was going through her storm. So today we're going to look at how do you act while you're going through a storm. Ruth had a storm. Her husband died. She had no family. She lived in a city that she didn't know. She just converted to Christianity, so her beliefs were different. She was just going through. She didn't have any money. She didn't have any land. She had to beg for food. She had to go out behind the workmen and pick up what they had left behind because she was going through a storm. Well, guess what? Storms will come. They will, regardless of who you are, who you love, or what you've been, how much money you have. They're gonna come. Divorce, laid off, relocation, sickness, they're going to come. But what do you do when you're in the storm? Do you panic? Do you cry? Do you give up? Do you question who God is and what he's going to do for you? Or why did you go through this? What do you do? She said, I do them all. The first thing you do is you turn it over to God. You turn it over to him. Ruth, when she confessed and said, your God will be my God, she was following what Naomi did. Naomi turned her problems over to God, so we're going to turn it over to God. Naomi followed God. Ruth followed Naomi. That's what she did. Turn it over to God. Then you stand on your faith. The handout that I gave you has other scriptures to encourage you if you're going through a storm, or if you know someone that's going through a storm. You can show these are encouraging scriptures. It tells you what God promises you and how you turn it over to God and how you stand on your faith. These scriptures remind you of the faith and the things that you should do to stand on your faith. Now, once you turn it over to God and you're standing on your faith, you don't think about yourself because you've turned your situation over. I'm not worried about what I'm going through because God's going to handle that. Now you start focusing on others. You continue to do the will of God while you're going through your storm. Ruth never focused on my husband's dead, my mama and daddy back there. I don't have any money. I'm begging. She never focused on any of that. She focused on Naomi. Whatever I can do to please you, I need to make sure Naomi eats. I need to make sure this is done. She focused on others. She continued to do the service and the will of God regardless of what she was going through. Because remember, people are still watching. They're watching to see how you as a Christian react when you're going through your storm. So you shouldn't selfless. You should give up. Don't make it about you. The pity party, don't have it. I mean, we're going to have it for a minute. Let's be honest. We'll all have a pity party for a minute, and then we need to move on. But then we continue to serve. Regardless of your situation, continue to serve. Continue to do the will of God. Continue to move on. And guess what? God promises to be faithful and reward you. Now, what I learned in the book of Ruth, and I hope that you learned in the book of Ruth, is no matter what she went through, she never had a pity party. She continued to serve and give good service to God. And then at the end, she was blessed. God was faithful. Boaz blessed her because she was faithful and she continued to do in the storm. God blessed her with the son, which then was a blessing to Naomi, because Naomi also had lost everything that she had, and she felt like God had turned his back on her because she had nothing. She felt like God was not faithful to her. But at the end, because she continued and she went on, God blessed her through Ruth with a son. So no matter what your situation is, no matter what your storm is, divorce, children, finances, job, no matter what your situation is, continue to be faithful unto God. Continue to do your work. Continue to be faithful in church. Continue to show, as we learned earlier today, continue to show your glory. Let God's glory come through you so that other people can be blessed and see that this is a storm and that I can go through it too. Some people call it storms. Some people call it tests. Some people call it trials and tribulations. But the lesson is to be faithful during that time. Continue to do your service and continue to work, because the reward is not in your trial and your tribulation. The reward is because you were faithful in that trial. Now, when I first started doing this lesson, it bothered me, and I just couldn't figure out why. I just felt like I wasn't getting it.